What's up then, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Park Lane Podcast with myself, Luke. And this week I'm joined by Callum and Harry. Callum, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, no, I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's been an interesting week in the world of Spurs, so I know we'll cover that soon.
Yeah, nice one, mate. And Harry, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Nice to be back talking Tottenham. Mainly transfer news today, so looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, definitely. We did discuss last week a little bit about some potentials ins and outs at Spurs, and we'll do the same this week. If there is any talking points or discussions that anybody wishes to suggest to us throughout the weeks during pre-season, do let us know. We're all open to ideas and happy to discuss kind of anything that comes across. Before we do get going, though, a lot of you viewed in last week and tuned in last week, so appreciate that. Don't forget to click the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Appreciate all of those things. They do help us out massively, and free to do so and really easy. So would appreciate it. Right, Harry, let's just kick this off and let's go straight into talking about Mohammed Kudus. According to various sources, Spurs apparently lodged 50 million bid. There is an 80 million release clause, which expires on the 10th of January, I believe. I'm not 100% sure how true that is, but July, I should say, not January. We're talking about July. But Spurs clearly don't want to pay 80 million pounds for Kudus. I kind of want to know your thoughts on him as a player, on it as a transfer. Like, where are you at in terms of this player? Because I'll go into my thoughts in a bit. Where are you at?
Yeah, I like Kudus. I think he would be a good signing, but you can understand why Spurs don't want to pay 80 million. I think we can all three of us on the panel tonight agree that he isn't an 80 million player. I think there are some concerns about him, and I definitely think there's better out there. I think if we, really serious, want to kick on and achieve, sustained success after winning the Europa League last season, after ending our trophy drought last season, then we say to United, yeah, come on then, we're going to take you on from Mbama, or we'd say to Arsenal, come on then for Eze, or we'd offer something really serious to Semenya before he signed that new Bournemouth deal. We haven't done any of those three things as of yet, and Semenya were too late for, and the other two I think would be too late for probably this time the podcast gets to people. That's how quickly the transfers are moving from other teams apart from Spurs. We're just falling asleep, and others are getting business done. That shows the difference in ambition. Good signing, Kudus. Better out there. I think there's concerns about his stats, about his consistency, but there's no doubt about it that he's a good player, and he would, I think, improve the attacking options we've got, which I think you've got to look at. But it'd be interesting to see whether West Ham are willing to do a deal with Tottenham and whether there'll be a so-called Tottenham tax on top.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, apologies. I've just decided to completely lose my camera. I'm not sure what you guys can see on your end, so bear with me.
Only your ugly mug, mate. Only your ugly mug that's frozen.
What's your thoughts going through that, Callum?
I'm a little bit more harsh than Harry. I think there is definitely a much better player out there than Kudus. I think that there's potential there, and I know we always say about potential in players. He's his stats last year were crap, but I think most West Ham players were rubbish. He seems to be the most sellable asset they've got, so I think it's kind of an enforced sale. It seems to be a hand-me-down player a little bit. I mean, if we were serious, I'd go and get Jared Bowen. But, I mean, I think Danny Dyer would kill him if he ever was to leave West Ham. So I don't think he would make the taxi over here. But, no, I mean, Kudus, he's got links to Frank from the Denmark team days and all that in the past. So there's a player there. I think there are better. The only positive that I have heard is that he will be one of two players that Spurs look to bring in the forward positions. So it won't just be him. So if he's one of two, I'm more happy than if it's just going to be him. Let's put it that way, mate.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty much on your side on that part. I think 65 games he's played in the Premier League and scored 13 goals. As a winger, he's got 12 assists in that time. I think he got 5 last season. I think it's really, really bad numbers in my opinion. Look, the only asset that Kudus has is pace, in my opinion. I've seen people talk about dribbling stats was slightly less than Lamine Yamal last season or something, some nonsense like that. Like, the stats I want to see are goals and assists. I don't want to see, how many successful dribbles someone's had. The very nitty gritty stats are not relevant, to a team. If we look at someone like Brennan Johnson, you can slate him as much as you want.
Yeah.
Goal scorer last season, score goals matters, and that's what I want from a player. Personally, and I put this on Twitter the other day. Personally, I would go and get Garnacho from Manchester United instead. I think he's as good a player as Kudus and a lot cheaper, and a deal that can be done in 5 minutes. Manchester United want to get rid of him, and left wing is somewhere that we desperately need. Obviously, we have Matthias Tell, and we have Son Heung-min. With Charleston who could potentially play there, but none of those players are world beaters. And so to complement that, the not only starting 11 but squad, I think that he would be a player that Spurs should go and get immediately. But for some reason, clubs are avoiding. I don't know why he hasn't been snapped up already. There clearly is reasons for it. That's who I would go for. £50 million. We're going into Richarlison territory at the moment. With Kudus, in my opinion, and that's the worry for me. Is like 50 million is what been rejected. Like, what is it going to take? And are we going to get to a point where we just walk away? Which could be quite possible. And, I think it was Romano today said, the personal terms have been agreed with Kudus. So it's not an issue for us to be able to go and get him in terms of the player side. It's just about Spurs financially. But, Harry, what do you think will end up happening with this? Knowing what Spurs are like.
Yeah, I was like you in terms of I thought that the Spurs would eventually walk away, but what is more positive that we're hearing from multiple sources today is that Kudus wants to join Tottenham. I think that was a big worry, being a West Ham player, would he want the move? And it looks like that we want Kudus. And I think when you have both those two things in a deal, I mean, I'm absolutely no expert on deals, but it surely makes a bigger chance of it going through. I think that's really important. I think West Ham would rather do business with Chelsea. To be honest with you, I think it'd be a case of Tottenham 60 million, with Chelsea maybe 55. I don't know how much it'll be, but there'll be some small gap like that. I reckon it'll be a case of it'll be like 60, 65 that probably convince West Ham. So you're absolutely right, Luke. I think it's going to be a deal that's going to take several weeks. But what makes me want this, want it to happen a little bit more, I suppose, is the fact that he seems to have chosen us over Chelsea, and I like that. That's a big kind of win. Somebody wants to be here. I think as a player, no matter how good you are, if your player wants to be here, wants to do well, that's really important. So to upset both West Ham and Chelsea fans in one deal is pretty special, but we've got to look at more than that in the overall package. And Garnacho is a very good shout. It's a very good shout. I think we need more than him, but I do think he's underrated. I think a lot of people look at him last season and what was quite an average season for him in an average Manchester United team. Now, let's be totally honest with you. He was a good player there, and his numbers are certainly better than Kudus. So it's a shame that I feel like we're just like discounted Eze and Mbeumo. Okay, that we can't compete with him, but we've sold the dream. And I'll say it again, we moved into the new stadium, that we'll be able to compete, in Daniel Levy's words, with top 6 clubs, best clubs in England and the best clubs in Europe, were his words, both on the pitch and in the transfer market. And sadly, we've done neither of them, and that's not going to change anytime soon. That's the problem we've got. And many other teams going for Kudus? No. And that's where you've got to look at yourself. Yes, there's other interested, but are others putting bids in? No. But they are for Eze and they are for Mbeumo, because that's where, for me, our interest should be, but it's not.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And Henry said no more Premier League experienced wingers available out there. We have Johnson, who can score goals, and Kudus, who can help in breaking down low blocks. Good deal for me. Garnacho, you must be joking. What's interesting, though, is that Garnacho scored 6 Premier League goals last season, and Kudus only scored 5. So we look at it, goals alone. It's not a bad deal. But look, it's just a thought out there. In my opinion, I'm looking at it in 2 ways, right? I'm looking at it ease of deal, and also I'm looking at it on price. Garnacho will be cheaper than Kudus. It's as simple as that. When a player wants to leave a club, right now we're trying to purchase probably apart from Jared Bowen, West Ham's probably best asset in terms of an attacking player. We're going to have to pay a premium also because we're a London club. When you go for someone like Garnacho, you're paying less because they're wanting to get rid of somebody. When they're actively wanting to sell a player, there's that on it as well. So look, by all means, I'm not saying that he's the answer to all our prayers, but when it comes to deals that can be done, and I don't think there's much difference in the player. But Callum, do you have any thoughts on that yourself?
Well, I think there's other Premier League wingers that are experienced and actually homegrown quality as well. I mean, I think Alanga or Hudson-Odoi from Forest, I think they could be achievable if you put up the money for it. So no, I think there's definitely options there.
Cheaper, wouldn't he, as well?
Well, apparently the Newcastle are approaching £50 million deal for him. So I mean, yeah, there's definitely got to be something there to be explored. But I don't know, if Frank wants Kudus, then so be it. I guess it's one of them where I don't know. Yeah, I think there are better players than Kudus, let's put it that way. And I think that everyone knows I've been a massive advocate for Eze for so long. I think there's players out there that can be better than Kudus and that are better than Kudus and probably more achievable in terms of price tag as well, to be honest. I don't know what his best position is either, to be honest. But if Frank thinks that he can convert us into a player like he did with Mbermo, with Sharda, with Visser, into this goal-scoring 15, 20 goal a season, then so be it. But I just personally can't see it, if you get what I mean. But it's just me.
Yeah. If this rumour is to be believed, regarding this £80 million, clause in his contract, which, according to what I was reading, runs out on the 10th of July. Spurs aren't going to, nothing will be done until then anyway, because, they'll wait until that expires to then be able to then force it home a little bit more. Again, I'm not sure whether that's 100% true, but it's definitely an interesting take on it. But let's move on. Let's talk about a player that always gets talked about with Spurs, even when he was at Chelsea. Now he's at Atletico Madrid. Conor Gallagher. Now, I'm not sure whether this is being discussed only because of the fact that they also want Christian Romero. So maybe there's a deal to be done where, we get money plus player for that deal. I mean, where are you at, Harry, with this type of player? He seems like one of those players that we talk about every single window. And he's always, no matter who the manager is, he's linked with Spurs.
Well, we seem to have these players, don't we, that always seem to pop back up. Traore is a common one, Gallagher's another, and they just won't go away. And I think it's a lot of it with Tottenham. We seem to be the team, if you believe all the sources and reporting, I think you've got to be careful how much you do believe. I will say that. There's a lot of we admire, we are interested in, we're in talks in, we're exploring, rather than other clubs we want and we're going to go and do it. Of course, there's a lot more to that, but with Spurs just seems like everything seems to take longer. So Gallagher, I don't think it will happen. I don't think he'll ever be a Tottenham player. I think it's with Gallagher. I think he's a nice player, but he's never really, the price tag hasn't really represented the player. It's always been sky high. I think Chelsea probably made a mistake to get rid of him. It's a crazy deal that they've done to bring the old Felix back to the club and send Conor Gallagher the other way. I know why they did to bring in money, but in terms of looking at the player, that's a massive downgrade, I'm afraid. It really didn't make sense in that point of view in terms of what Chelsea were getting rather than trying to reach certain goals and quotas. So Gallagher is a good player, there's no doubt about it, but I just can't see him coming to Tottenham.
No, yeah. Look, I think, as you say, there's been those players over time that have always been linked to Spurs, and he seems to be on that list from now on. But has anybody, talking about Chelsea again, taking everything I read with a pinch of salt, has anyone else read about this fine that Chelsea have got from UEFA? They've been fined £27 million, and if they don't fall into line for the 26-27 season, they could be banned from European competitions. In order to balance their books for UEFA's PSR, they'll need to make a profit of £85 million from player sales this season. To put it into perspective, they lost £50 million in the 2024 season and £100 million losses last season. Now, I'm not sure, again, the validity of all of these claims, but whilst they're not Spurs, we might as well talk about them. What do you think about that, Callum? Do you think it's just, again, like UEFA trying to test their arm? Do you think it'll ever happen?
Yeah, I think it's UEFA trying to flex a little bit, to be honest. They seem to want all this power, and yet they know all this uncompulsory stuff that was in there, and they still allowed Chelsea to compete in this Club World Cup that's run by UEFA and FIFA as well. And Chelsea have made over £100 million already to this stage in this competition. They've covered the costs of the lap, João Pedro, and got money to go towards Gyno Gittins. They probably have money to go towards Kudus as well. So no, I think that someone will have a brown envelope drop on their desk somewhere or other. I think Infantino will probably end up buying the Chelsea's women's team as well. You never know. It will become a formal feeder club of UEFA. But no, in all seriousness, these fines are worth fuck all, to be honest, in all honesty, because look, Villa have got one, Chelsea have got one, how City haven't got one is a joke. Yeah, I honestly cannot see this having much impact on Chelsea because they can easily just sell an asset and they'll just make that down as profit on a balance sheet. It doesn't say you have to do it through player sales. You can do it through club revenue. You can do it through commercial revenue. It's very much a loophole that you can jump through, and so many clubs are doing it. Like Villa have done, they've sold their women's team in the last 2 weeks to balance the books, and yet it's just to a subsidiary of the company that actually owns them as well. So, and Forest have done it as well in the past, and I don't think there's any sort of real worry from this, and I think a lot of clubs will start using this model, and Spurs will be the only ones that can't because we don't want to spend the money to sell to ourselves. Let's put it that way.
Do you know what? I thought you were going to say, Spurs won't because, they don't need to and all the rest of it. No, that was funny. Talking about about Aston Villa, sorry, I should say. Player who is interesting. Again, I don't think there's much in it, but definitely someone that I would be interested at Spurs. Harry, would be Jacob Ramsey. I think he's a phenomenal player in the centre of the park, and he would definitely add something. We look at someone like Eze at Spurs, and I wonder where he would fit into Spurs. Right? I think he's wasted as a winger. He's much better in a number 10 position. And when you bring someone in like Jacob Ramsey, who's more, central midfield or potential box-to-box midfield, you get a lot. You can see where he'd fit into Spurs. You get what I mean?
Yeah, as much as I like Eze, Jacob Ramsey is a much more natural fit in this side, as I think, especially as well under Thomas Franks. He's like a player that could really thrive under him, even without much analysis. So I think that would make sense. It allows some move midfielders on as well. Because if you look at our whole kind of team in terms of defence, midfield and attack, including goalkeepers in this as well, if you actually look at numbers, it's really short in midfield. You don't realise how much until you literally get the squad up and have a look. There isn't a lot. If one player gets injured, you've got a crisis in midfield. You can't be in that situation when you've been playing 2 games a week. Ramsey's very smart player. I think would be good recruitment. Again, won't come cheap. I don't know how much, but it'll be quite a lot for an young English midfielder as well that will, without doubt, attract interest among other clubs in and outside of the Premier League. Again, it's another one that probably won't happen because the issue is, Luke, see, we've got pre-season here. Other teams have got deals done in that first part of the transfer window. I know the transfer window is open a long time, but if possible, you don't really want to be doing business as it goes into the season because we're in a situation now, a period of transition, a period of change, where we need this kind of comfort, I suppose, for the manager, for this team, this group of players. And it's just really important for them to get to understand teammates. It's no secret why Arsenal are literally in every way getting deals done at the moment, forcing teams, badgering deals. They're getting it done. And Liverpool as well, the first part of the window, got a lot of business done because it gives the manager more time with the players. I know it's easier said than done, but we've signed no one apart from Matthias Tell, who's already here last season, which won't improve us. No disrespect. I also don't want him, but it's not an improvement because we had him last year. Ramsey would be a good signing, but it's another one that I think will probably go to somewhere like Manchester United to get it done.
Yeah, it's annoying as well because, Callum, we were just literally talking about PSR just then, and Spurs, if they were smart, which we used to be led to believe, in dealings and things like that, that Daniel Levy was all about getting a savvy deal done here and there. Why doesn't he go, before the deadline for PSR and try and get, raid these clubs with players that they, would need to sell to make, do you know what I mean, to make profit from? But yet they just don't want to do it because these deals will cost money more than they're willing to spend, even if they are good deals.
Because Spurs are an asset-rich club, not a cash-rich club, mate. Spurs have fuck all cash. We owe a lot of money in transfer fees this summer from deals already done. We still owe money on Richarlison, Udogie, Basuma, people like that with all these deferred payments. And the chickens have come back to roost this summer because we owe a lot of it this summer. And if we wanted to do something, we should sell this hotel that we haven't even... Oh, wait, we haven't built it yet. We can't sell that. We could sell the club shop. We'll make that a Sports Direct. That'd go down well. We could sell the Skywalk. I mean, I did hear a rumour that Spurs were trying to give Skywalk tickets to all the West Ham staff for the Kudus deal instead. That would have gone down well. But no, we as a club don't have a lot of cash this summer at the moment, and that's why we can't get involved in these deals. We have to, because the clubs in this PSR merry-go-round need the cash as upfront payments to balance the books, to put it on there. They don't need Daniel Levy's, oh, I'll give you 10 million now, I'll give you a packet of biscuits in a year, and then I'll give you another 10 million in 5 years, sort of transfer dealings. They need money now, and Spurs just don't have that in residual income at the moment, because we have to move players out to get that money sort of spiraling, if you get what I mean. And even if we sell a player, we still have to play the first stuff.
Yeah, it makes me feel like I'm playing Football Manager, you know. I didn't expect to still be there 3 years after I started the job, and all the £1 million up front and 50 million over the 3 years is coming back to bite me in the ass.
It's one of them where you just quit your job, isn't it, before that season starts, or you get the editor and you just get rid of the deferred payments. But no, in all seriousness, Spurs...
I'm not a cheater. I'm not a cheater. I play through. Mm-hmm. I write the hard times.
Well, you do live in Scotland, so no surprise there, mate. Come on, what do you expect?
To be fair, usually I'm stuck by that point, to be honest. I don't usually get to the
But no, in all seriousness, Spurs do have... They have assets that can be sold, and there is money in the ENIC Foundation, sort of this Joe Lewis Trust, that can be invested. It's whether they're prepared to do it or not, because Spurs are looking for investment this summer to make stuff happen, and it just hasn't been forthcoming as yet.
No, that's fair enough. Positive news though, if we can call it. Positive news, I suppose. We may have a new defender, finally coming at some point from a J League. So that's something positive to look on. I mean, we talked about it last week. It's not looking likely that this is going to be a player that's going to be in the first team, anytime soon. But deals are coming in, I suppose. Let's move on to outgoings. I mean, we did talk about it last week. We had a whole show based on it last week, but I think it's going to rumble on most of the window, Harry. But that's Christian Romero. Is looking like he doesn't want to sign a new deal necessarily at Spurs. He has in the past expressed that he wants to play in La Liga. Atletico Madrid are very, very keen on him, but again, they're playing Daniel Levy ball with us. 55 to 60 million euros. I don't even think that buys half of Christian Romero, does it?
In my opinion, it shouldn't. If I'm honest with you, I think, again, it's only reported, but Atletico's reported valuations are disgraceful. They really are. I think Romero we're talking about. And listen, fans of any club always overhype their players. For example, I love Van der Ven, but I think there's a lot of hype. There's a load of players in our team. I think they're good, but there's probably too much hype. I think there is an exception with Christian Romero where there actually is quite underrated among the fan base. And Solanke's another in a different position to use an example. It's not just Romero, but for me, you've got to keep hold of him. If you're a serious club, you do enough to, keep Romero at the club. But what I will reiterate, and I think is really important, if you have a player that simply does not want to be here to the point that they will cause problems, then you can't keep hold of them. You have to say, okay, Romero, you're class, but from Tottenham as a whole, it's not healthy to keep you here because you don't want to be here. That has to be the priority. We know Romero's ability. We want him. I think if we lose him, then that defence goes from looking really good and a lot of depth to, okay, this is, like any other kind of top 6, top 8 defence. That's the difference I think Romero makes. And I genuinely do think and believe that. So if we can keep hold of Romero, great. I think there would have probably already been a deal put on the table to him or in kind of talks that he's probably reluctant to sign. But at the same time, Tottenham created this problem. If you sack a proven winner who's gone and delivered, in my eyes, done the job that he should have been appointed for, we don't believe he probably appointed for a different reason, but he's gone out there and ended a 16-year trophy drought. Then you remove him, which brought Romero another trophy and brought him good times. Then as a club, you have to pay the price for that. And if they lose Romero, then that is on Daniel Levy and the Tottenham board. There's no two ways about it. If you lose from, in my eyes, your best player because you made a decision to sack a manager, even if it turned out to be good, you've got to take that on the chin. So I think that they've caused themselves their own problem here with Romero. So we'll have to see what happens. I reckon that Romero will probably stay. and then we may look to leave in January, although it'll be a lot tougher to do so. So I think that we'll keep hold of him because I don't think any club will meet what Spurs want. But even if Atletico come in with like,
Harry, isn't it? Because at that point he's then into his last year of his contract, and then you're on a bit where you just sell him for anything you can, or do you let him go on a free transfer at the end of that?
I'd take that risk because I think a year of Romero gives you a better chance of getting back, into the European places in terms of finishing league position. Let's say top 6 as an example, because I don't think we're going to sign the players to finish inside the top 4. Sadly, let's say top 6 for now, or top 7 or whatever. Then Romero, we're more likely to do it with him than not, and that guarantee that brings in your money, it gives you European football. So I think I'll take that risk. Daniel Levy will not want to. But again, you just don't. This is a style you don't want continuing into the season. I'm going to use a different club quickly to give an example of why you don't really drag it in. Crystal Palace, the start of last season, right? In the end, they finished like 12th. They could have been so much better and they could have got Europe if it wasn't for that start of the season. For example, the Mark Gahey transfer saga went on for ages. It affected their start of the season. He actually scored 2 own goals in that first part of the season. And this is a player whose head was at Liverpool. He'd done, he's hard as a player. I'm sure he's very dedicated, very focused, but in his head, he was going to Liverpool, so he was really struggling. And as you remember, Palace at rock bottom, I think, going into that first international break, because they didn't know the future of several players, including Eze, including Mark Gahey, Tyrese Mitchell. So it was a worrying time for Palace around their best assets. Obviously, lost Michael Olise. If that window is shut 2-3 weeks earlier, I genuinely think we're talking about them. Obviously, I know they are in Europe or might be in Europe, but we're talking about them having finished inside the top 8, let's say. They were that good in that second half of the season. So we just don't want this to continue. Get it over and done with either way and move on. If he leaves, then we can find a replacement. We just need to get on with it.
Yeah, look, I definitely kind of agree with you in terms of the part that you mentioned, because, look, Christian Romero was very fond of Ange Postecoglou, right? You can see that from his message that he posted the day that Thomas Frank is announced, as the new Spurs boss. He's not one to mince his words, Christian Romero. And, as a football club, if you value your assets or your players, then surely you would do whatever you can to keep those players happy. And to go and sack, Ange Postecoglou, regardless of what you think about Ange Postecoglou, to go and sack him if what we believe, which should be, is Christian Romero is one of our best players and the most highly rated players, then why would you go and upset the apple cart? What you could do, which would be a cleverer option, would be to keep Ange Postecoglou, ride it out for the first 6 months, okay? Sign Christian Romero up to a new contract at that point, and then if you're going to get rid of Ange Postecoglou, you can. Do you get what I mean? Like, use him as a make-weight for that to happen. But again, Spurs shoot themselves in the foot because sacking Ange is going to come to bite them on the arse, and I'm pretty sure. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, we'll get on the last kind of 10 minutes to the Spurs kind of where we're at since Ange and Thomas Frank's come in. But probably the least interested I am in Spurs in a long time, I'm being completely honest. Look, I was a big fan of Ange, and I think sacking him was completely wrong. But even aside from that, just so deflated of this constant merry-go-round that always happens, that, I even led myself to believe at times was for the greater good. We talk about PSR and all those things. How many times I've said, well, I'm so glad that Spurs are always going to be financially sound when it comes to these types of things. But it makes no difference because whilst there's loopholes, whilst there's ways to cut around things, and whilst there's ways to always kind of cheat the system, we will always lose out because of our ownership. And it's a sad, sad place to be at this moment in time going into this season. Because as you said, Harry, every club around us is strengthening. We finished 17th in the league last season, and we haven't done anything to strengthen that whatsoever.
Yeah, spot on. It's infuriating. I could rant the whole time to you, but I don't want to take up either your, guys' time. It's just frustrating.
Let's move on. Let's talk about Richarlison. Look, make a massive loss on this. Rumours of 20 million could get rid of him. I still think that's a bit too pricey for Richarlison, to be honest. But the likelihood is clubs are looking to loan him. Callum, where are you at in terms of Richie?
Ironically, I think he could be a player that Thomas Frank will bloody like. How it'll go. He'll be that one player that he thinks could turn him into something special, like God knows how many other managers have. Don't get me wrong. I think well, he's got better stats than Kudus, but that's not hard. But no, I mean, I think the Pigeon's had his time, and we say thank you and goodbye. But 20 million, that's taking the piss. To be honest, in all honesty, it's really taking the pee. I mean, I saw links to Flamengo the other day. And
Flamingo?
Well, yeah, I was thinking that, but no, apparently they're a club in Brazil or something like that. But no, I mean, there have been links to him going to Saudi. Can't see that happening. They've got other players they're looking at. And to go back, that's like a player graveyard, isn't it? In Turkey, to be honest, you go out there to get your teeth done or get a hair transplant. I mean, that's where I should be going for two things, not to play football. So I mean,
let's be honest.
But no, literally, I don't. Well, Turkish clubs seem to come in like their transfer window closes about a week after everyone else, and they seem to get bargain bucket buys, don't they? And bargain bucket loan deals like they did with Osimhen last year. So I can't physically see him going to the Turkish league. To be honest, I just don't see. I don't see Richie leaving early. Let's put it that way. There's got to be some other option there. Problem is, I can't bloody see that option at the moment, and that's where I'm a little bit concerned because the clubs that have apparently been looking at him just aren't there. And the money that Daniel Levy's going to want, he's going to want at least 40, isn't he? Because he's still got 2 years on his contract.
Deal, doesn't it? It stinks of a loan deal with no obligation. You know, Apsey does nothing for us financially, so we can't actually bring anybody in, and we lose a player who could have some impact because as a squad player, that's what it stinks of to me.
And that's the thing. It's going to be, we'll get a loan fee for him, probably like, say, 5 million or something like that. It won't cover nowhere near what we want. But I think Richie, depending on a good pre-season and keeping him around, I'm not objected to it. But you know that what Spurs will say, oh, well, we couldn't sell Richarlison, so we couldn't go and get someone like Mbermo or Eze or Xavi Simons and some crap like that. That'll be Daniel Levy's excuse. So I think it's time for him to go, but I cannot physically see it happening for the money that we want.
No, fair enough. Michael Jackson. Well, I nearly did an impression then, but I won't. He said, "Get Harvey Elliott and Justin Kluivert and James McAtee. They would be good signings." Harry, what do you reckon on those three?
Good shouts. Yeah, I think Harvey Elliott would be a really good bit of business. I'm not too keen on the individual that we see on the football pitch, if I'm honest, but in terms of ability, there's no doubt about it. I think he's a very talented player that deserves regular first-team football. Hopefully we could give that a Tottenham. We certainly should be able to. Kluivert I like, but I'd maybe lean away from. I do prefer Semenyo. Obviously, he's not now available. I think Kluivert might be a little bit. I like him. Don't get me wrong, but I think it may be like a season one. Don't be bold and say it there. But James McAtee is good as well. But again, I think I'd look elsewhere to the players that we discussed already tonight, like Jacob Ramsey. But out of the three, if you said to me like pick one to sign, it would be absolutely Harvey Elliott. But again, it will come with a price. That's the thing. And Spurs don't seem to be willing to do the business. It boils my blood because, as you say, after finishing 17th and we're all this, we got to, sell to buy and, we can't spend this. We haven't got that. Well, where's the planning? You finished 17th. What's your plan to get, at least back in the top half of the Premier League? The reality is there is no plan. And the club will be twiddling their fingers very soon when we're all of a sudden in the bottom half again. Because I wonder why that is. Well, it's crystal clear to me. We don't match the ambition that these supporters want to see and deserve.
Yeah, and you watch videos of Daniel Levy and Vinay sitting there talking about how they both like the same red wine or whatever on YouTube, and then Daniel Levy follows that up with, win the Europa League was amazing, but we want to win bigger things such as the Premier League and the Champions League. And then,
in Cuckoo Land,
with the barrel trying to find the best deal that we can, for no effect.
That was like watching. That was like watching fucking Love Island, weren't it? Come on. That was literally like the worst Love Island episode going. So, I mean, it doesn't help.
Yeah, exactly. Look, the only thing I dislike about Harvey Elliott as a non-playing thing is obviously, does anyone remember when he was a child or whatever? I can't remember exactly how old he was.
That's what I'm talking about.
That tweet about, I think it was at Harry Kane, wasn't it? He's just a bit of a little shit, really. But look, he's a decent player, and you have to give him that, he does seem like the player at Liverpool that from talking with some Liverpool friends I know as well, that could be on his way out if you were going to try and pick anyone. He's an option for sure, but I don't think Spurs will end up doing it because I think that Liverpool probably priced them out of the deal. But definitely appreciate Michael for your stuff. Good to see you're well as well. That's a shock to everyone, isn't it? But anyway, Milton has said, just stumbled across the channel. Really like what I'm hearing. Gave you guys a like and a sub. Just a Spurs fan from Oz. Appreciate it, Milton.
Fantastic.
Thank you for your time and hope you enjoy yourself. So let's move on to talk about the last player before I talk about kind of Daniel leaving the club in a bit more detail, guys. But let's talk about Ash Phillips. Again, Callum, we talked about this last week. Looks like Sheffield United are interested in £6 million deal for him. Spurs are currently, discussing it from what I was reading this week. But £6 million, if we paid less than that for him, even if he's not guaranteed player to kind of light the Premier League up, get into our starting 11 anytime soon, is it a deal worth taking at that money?
Well, the good thing is that the bid doesn't actually exist from what I spoke to someone about at the club the other day, so it's non-starter. Spurs may be looking to loan Phillips out, but in a couple of weeks' time, not sell him at the moment. So, yeah, non-starter for me, mate, let's put it that way.
Perfect. Where do you sit, Harry, on him as a player in general?
I like what I've seen. I haven't seen enough. I'm not going to sit here and go, Ashley Phillips is the next big thing. We have to keep him, etc., etc., etc. But I like what I've seen. Plymouth in particular. I thought he was very good, very neat defender. And I just think with Romero's future uncertain, I think we probably have to keep him or loan him. They should not be looking to sell him. It's just players that we sign, Luke, and it might not be the case with Phillips, but we just then look to see we talk to other clubs, or we look to see to sign and sell players like Valise. We'll make a loss on. Why did you sign him? We've got absolutely nothing out of him. Even Richarlison, right? And I'm going to say it. I like him. You know how I feel about him. But why pay all that money? And then you're looking at selling for a cut price of 15, 20 million if you can get that. And we'll be absolutely pushing the max if we can get something like 25. And we just pay all that money. And what have we got really? A couple of goals here and there, a couple of nice moments. But I just think that, for all this money that has been spent, because it has been spent in some ways since moving to the new stadium. It's been spent dreadfully, really poorly. Yeah. And yes, you'd be right. We'd make a tiny profit if we take $6 million for Ashley Phillips. But that just feels like the unambitious option rather than a manager working with him and trying to raise his value. I just feel like we feel like a small club, Luke, trying to survive. Like we're about to go bust, and we're going, Phillips, we can get an extra couple of million for him, more than we paid for him. I just feel like the way we look at it, I'd keep hold of Phillips. What can you lose? The thing is as well, we don't give players opportunities. Like David Scarlett, for me, hasn't had the opportunity. I listened to a Spurs fan the other day. We've got to sell him. Why is he still here? But we haven't given him really a chance in the Spurs shirt. When I talk about chance, Dave Scarlett as an example, when Solanke's injured, 5-6 games up front, give him 60, 65 minutes, give him, a chance. What we don't, you give him 25 minutes max in one game. It's not enough in a struggling Spurs team that was shot to pieces at times last season. Yet we sit here and go, why do these players go on to other clubs and win things and do well when we don't give them a chance? And it's just frustrating. But Phillips, I would probably keep hold of, but the loan, if it's right, I think would not be an awful thing to do either.
Yeah, it's such a hard one, when you talk about someone like Dave Scarlett, because it's like, where would we find that time to give him that would be, kind of like risk-free? Do you get what I mean? Like, where is that time where it doesn't matter?
I know what you mean, but we've gone through what fans would all agree on is a major injury crisis, and we're playing like Son up front, and we're just trying to force something that doesn't feel right, and you've got a striker in Scarlett there. And I get he was injured at parts last season, but I just felt like we've done everything possible not to play him. Like Werner at one point was played up front. So, they definitely could have played Scarlett up front. I just feel like we don't get the opportunities. Like Valise, people going, oh, he's awful, he's not going to work. And I've just sat here and gone, it's a weird signing. I think it is a weird signing, but he hasn't really got a chance. It's 5-10 minutes at the end of the game. Who's going to make that impact? I just feel like, how are we going to make or know if we've got someone like the next Harry Kane if they're not given an opportunity? Because Kane was given that chance. That's only why it worked. Other players are not. That's the problem we've got.
Yeah. Maybe we need Tim Sherwood back.
Can I just come in quickly on that? Let's put it this way: with say Scarlett and Phillips, there's much other worse options to sell at the moment at the club. I mean, I saw a picture of Brian Hill sitting on a fucking cycling machine yesterday. I mean, it was like intruder alert at the bloody Hotspur away. I swear I saw alarms going off in the background. But there's Solomon, there's Hill to be sold, there's Richarlison, there's Basuma. Don't sell these young players who have a higher ceiling than half of these. It's like I heard from someone today that they might be considering selling Jamie Donnelly as well. I'm just like, the geezer's 19. It's like they want to sell Yan Min Hook as well. It's people don't want to give the chance to these players. And the problem was, Ange said before he came to Spurs, you have to throw these players in at the deep end to give them a chance. And, well, let's put it this way, he shot himself in the foot when he said that statement, because I don't think he did that with many young players. Let's put it that way. But Thomas Frank has to. Well, yeah, that's the thing. The only game that he did was against Elfsborg, and he gave more Jai and Scarlett their chance for it. Yeah, great. But then every other chance, he just used players that weren't performing, and they didn't give a chance to these people. So Ange more for him on that one. But the club, if they can get a quick buck, I wouldn't do it for these youth players. Let's put it this way. I think Scarlett and Lancashire have to be given a chance in pre-season. I'd say Phillips, you send on loan again. If you're going to sell him, you sell him next year, because you can raise his value, I would say, probably by another 10 million if he has another successful season. You sell look at Chelsea. They sell the youth players for 20 plus million. They haven't even made a contribution to the first team. Spurs sell Parrott for 5 and a 20 million sell-on clause. Look at him. He becomes one of the top scorers in the Eredivisie last year. Come on. It's a no-brainer. It's sod's law, isn't it?
I think the only reason why people are having this discussion now is just at his age. He's at that age now where, if it was going to happen at Spurs, it would have happened by now. But
Harry Kane was 20. Harry Kane was 21, 22. So yeah. I don't mean to shit in your cereal, mate. But that's literally the age where they broke through as well. I mean, Mason broke through at this age. Bentaleb was 19. Tanganga 22. Walker Peters 21. Townsend 20. So, I mean, the ages where these players are breaking through is a lot older now as well, because they have to go through this loan system. And I think where Spurs have failed up until this season is using the loan systems, because they've chosen the wrong club. But now they've seen it, they know it works. And I think you will see some very interesting loans this summer coming, like Ajay going to Doncaster. Very good move for him down to League One. So I think that this season will be make or break for Scarlett, but I think he's got to have that chance to do it as well, because we've got too many foreign players in our bloody squad anyway. So we've got to have these younger homegrown players around, because if not, we won't be able to comply with nothing this year.
Yeah. No, look, I get it. I do get it. Right then, let's have a quick discussion about kind of Spurs in general, where we're at as a club. Harry, I don't know if we've talked much since, or even at all since, Ange, has left the football club. Oh, maybe we spoke once actually. We didn't discuss it. Where are you at this moment in time in terms of A, the management of the club, but also B, the ownership of the football club?
Awful, god awful. I think it's like poison at the moment, if I'm totally honest with you. I think we need a complete overhaul, and we've seen lots of changes at the club. I've just got to a point, and I was kind of like you, Luke, where in terms of, well, for me, I would have wanted them out if you had a gun to my head and said, look, Eni can leave it in or out. It would have been out. I'm going to be honest about that. But I didn't feel strongly, because I'm like financially secure. That means a lot to me. I'd always opt to them, not being funny, but over Saudi investment, over Qatari investment for for moral reasons like yourself, but also the risk of going like bankrupt and just living on the edge. I don't like that. I don't want to be like Chelsea, running the risk of punishments time after time, and then the owners run off and the club has to pick up the pay the price and pick up kind of what's left. But for me, I just think it's got to a point now where they're just holding the club back. I think the biggest thing at the moment is the wage structure, which probably comes from ENIC, that holds us back and just doesn't allow us to retain our top assets. It doesn't allow us to attract the top players, either with the new stadium, either with the Champions League. It just makes barriers difficult. I think it'd be a big barrier for players up in Burma, because whether we like it or not, players are money motivated. They might not be solely, but they are more than they should be. We've seen that with the moves going to Saudi Arabia. Don't tell me there's anything more than money. That's all it is. Solely do believe that. So I think that's a big problem, and that doesn't allow us to achieve sustained success. Apparently Levy's dream. It's not going to happen under ENIC. But Daniel Levy, I often thought, oh, okay, you're just a ENIC puppet, you're doing what ENIC want. His managerial decisions have been nothing other than shocking, and that's what you have to judge him on. From appointments to sackings, they've been very poor. To Mauricio Pochettino's sacking, to Jose Mourinho's sacking, to Jose Mourinho's hiring, to Antonio Conte's sacking. Whatever you look at it, Ange Postecoglou's sacking, there have been some really weird, unsuccessful appointments. There's been managers not backed or not given the time. And I just think he gets it wrong every time. And fans are in jubilation. And you sack Ange Postecoglou after he comes back after his holiday, probably worrying about it all the time with his family. That, for me, is someone without any class, without any dignity. So I'm done with Levy. I think he holds us back. I think he'll always be involved in the football side. Luke, if you remember the old days, me being back on here, and it's been a long time since I've been on regularly, but we talked about Johan Langer, Scott Munn. This is the game changer. We all were thinking, Daniel Levy's finally going to step away. I think, whether he claims it was him or not, I believe he said it's not. We know the Ange Postecoglou sacking would have been Daniel Levy, and all these decisions. A mistake. It might not be a mistake. He might get it right, and I hold my hands up if that is the case. But it's mistake after mistake, and it just excuses after excuses. And he's only doing more on-camera stuff now because of the new CEO. There's like saying to him, "Look, you're probably not doing a good job speaking to the fans." So it just really frustrates me. There's no transparency. These decisions have been awful. So I think they're both as bad as each other, and I think they're holding the club back from achieving anything. And I think, seriously, you could... And I've always... when people say, oh, you got Pep Guardiola come to Tottenham and he wouldn't do very well, I've always gone like, yeah, whatever. I don't believe you. But if you think about it, he wouldn't be here long. He wouldn't... If we went through the season last season... that Manchester City did at times under Pep Guardiola, he would have been sacked by Christmas. So that's the reality. Levy wouldn't have given him a chance. Wouldn't have been a chance to turn it around. And that's the problem. I feel like we try and follow other clubs, Brighton, Arsenal, Chelsea, West Ham, all different models on and off the pitch. It'd be from recruitment to new stadium to transfer policy, rather than trying to develop something of our own. And we just fail. I just feel like we're 20 years behind in everything. For me, Levy, no clue when it comes to football. But we are financially secure. And all jokes aside, that is important. It's good to know that the club's safe. But that's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, in a world of like shark owners, I was reading this week about Sheffield Wednesday. This owner again hasn't paid certain players, their wages. He's paid all the young sellable assets, under 21s, their wages, but he's not paid the older players, and they have now a chance they can just hand their notice in and leave the football club. So I get that, right? And that's the only very thin piece of string that I'm now hanging on to. I was intrigued when I was appointed as a CEO, because I'd heard some really good things about him from the Arsenal side, and also really good things about how he is with fans and how much he wants to be involved in that side of things. But I'm yet to see anything. He hasn't been in work that long, but I'm yet to see anything that excites me in any kind of way with Spurs. And the end of last season went and the start of this season is going. Look, Thomas Frank will get my full backing. He could turn out to be the right? But the likelihood is it's just not going to happen. I've talked about my thoughts on Daniel Levy and why he sacked Ange Postecoglou many times on this channel. I won't bore everybody, with those thoughts. But Ange was too outspoken for Daniel. I don't think he liked, that he decided how it was going to go, and he decided which competitions he was going to prioritise. And it turns out who the correct person was, because if Daniel Levy had his way any sooner, he'd have sacked Ange Postecoglou whilst we were still in Europe, in all honesty, based on the fact that we were losing revenue. So only due to the fact that we were losing revenue in the Premier League. This is the furthest I have been, from being excited about my football club in, I would say, 10, 15 years, to be quite honest with you. Like, I've never felt this distant and far away. But look, I'm excited for the season to come, but that excitement is probably a 1 or a 2 currently. And again, it's nothing to do with Thomas Frank. It's just to do with how everything's going in this football club. And I've reached the end of my tether. There's only so many things that you can sit there and praise the ownership for. Look, I'm grateful that we still have a football club. Look, I'm grateful for the fact that we haven't run ourselves bankrupt. But these things should be things that you should expect from your football club. Do you know what I mean? These anomalies like Sheffield Wednesdays and stuff should be anomalies. And hopefully with fit and proper checks, they should now be anomalies forever. But we'll wait and see on that front. But I just don't know where we go and how we turn this around, because every season it's exactly the same. And I'm sick of watching, football clubs like Liverpool go and win the league and then go and back themselves to win the league again. Arsenal, I read today, are getting ever so closer to signing a deal, to get Gyökeres from Sporting Lisbon. And so, they're also likely to get Eze. Either of these players, look, I think it would fit good at Spurs. It's not necessarily the players, it's more the fact that they're going after the players that they want, and they're ambitious in terms of, going around and doing it. But look, this is where I'm at. There's nothing we can do currently. Do I think that Daniel Levy's going to change anytime soon? No. But on the flip side, Harry, do I also want Saudi money in this football club? No. So it's like, what do I want to happen? The small amount of people in this world who could afford to buy this football club, it gets smaller and smaller by the day. It depends on which the least likely corrupt person take over this football club is probably the one who I would like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting, firstly, actually, to hear from you and to hear your thoughts, because I know that you've been crystal clear with your thoughts on Levy and these owners. So it's really interesting to see just how disconnected you feel on others. I think you speak for a lot of people, so that's actually really interesting to hear. And I'm totally with you. I've always been someone, like, in terms of maybe at a personal level, and just generally been like, let's do kind of anything we can to make it to be successful, but there are boundaries to that. Do you want to be a club that is associated with, I don't know, maybe different ways people treat? I think you titled it different kind of views of owners have to the fans. I think that Newcastle, okay, it's probably okay. But in Chelsea with Abramovich, for example, I really wouldn't want that. Really wouldn't want to be, not financially secure, just short-term kind of gain for long-term pain, completely flipping the quote. I think that would be what it would be under different owners. It's hard to really find the right group. Definitely wouldn't want Qatari sports investment, wouldn't want Saudi investment. Have to be the right owners. And even like American owners you hear that are just purely NFL based. You're like, well, where do you kind of know anything from football? It's like Scott Munn. There's no history with football at a high level. It just doesn't, for me, that's, shrieked business, and it still does all this time later. Johan Lange, if you actually look into it with Aston Villa, Villa's recruitment was at its absolute worst under him, and it's at their best at the moment since he's left the club, and that speaks volumes. Even the new CEO, and I don't want to get too much into it, but he's got some questions to answer about his involvement with Thomas Partey. He was very complicit and oversaw every decision that happened with him. So I think we've got a lot of questions to ask, completely different questions, don't get me wrong, the questions to ask the people upstairs and the job they're doing. It doesn't look good. I think a board is very poor. I think it's got to wake up and open its eyes. But I think you speak very well on the owners, and I feel very similar to yourself.
Yeah, mate. Not only, it's not necessarily like solely Arsenal or Villa, that have questions to answer. It's also, the Premier League and various other bodies that have been involved.
Absolutely. It doesn't stop.
Reading correctly, Thomas Partey, without going into too many details on this, Partey was arrested and bailed multiple times over this period. And it just so happens that when his contract expires and he's let go by Arsenal, who, by the way, wanted to extend his contract. There were people who wanted to extend his contract, who were very aware of what was going on. And, suddenly when his contract expires, now he's been charged with 5 counts of rape. Like, these kinds of people shouldn't be able to get away with these types of things. And this is what, the worst parts of, our country in certain senses, that it seems to be those who are earning the most amount of money are those who tend to get away with the most.
Do you know who has the most questions to answer, in my opinion? And that is Mikel Arteta. His words were, Partey deserves this after all he's been through. I know he's talking on the football side. He says, been through a lot, taken a lot. He deserves this. We're all delighted for him. And they knew, Arsenal teammates knew, not being funny. And I will say this again. I know you have to be careful what you say, but there was evidence, unfortunately, that we did see. I think it was important to see. We did see there was evidence leaked on social media, some that was seen, some that was covered up. It's crystal clear. If we can see some of the stuff that Partey's done, not being funny, but why didn't Arsenal see it? And they're complicit in supporting a disgusting individual, and I'll put it out there. And I know it's only alleged, he's been accused of, etc. Hasn't 100%, but very, very likely, and it's very poor. You're absolutely right. Questions have to be asked, but the CEO should be taking those questions. We just know how it will happen. It'll be Daniel Levy. That'll be the focus, and he'll kind of deal with it in the wrong way again. I don't want Levy to be dealing with things like that because he just make a mess of it and try and drag the club into it. But I think we'll leave the party discussion.
Yeah. And Callum, where are you at the moment with Spurs?
I'm a bit on the fence. I mean, getting rid of Levy is easier said than done, considering that he owns 30% of the fucking club. So good luck on that one, to be honest, because obviously 70% is owned by shareholders and the Joe Lewis Trust, run by Joe Lewis's son and daughter now, because Joe Lewis is still under house arrest for corruption and banking fraud, which is always a fun one. Yeah, I don't think you'll get rid of Levy anytime soon. It's something that's been reported stopping past investors. He's said that he wants to stay on one way or another as chairman. He will always, on the business side, great. Footballing side, absolutely appalling. Scott Munn should have stayed on his bike. Jog on, mate, fuck off. Hopefully Vinay comes in with a little bit more sense. Fabio Paratici was great on the footballing side and the youth side. Look at him. He's been done for corruption as well. He's got another court case pending, hasn't he, with a court date at the end of August to see whether they extend his ban or whether they lift it. Johan Langer is a good data-driven person. Not much else. First-team signings, the ones that they've got are quite obvious. They were proven successes and had already been successful at their clubs. Donna Cullen has gone out the door. She was responsible for communications with the club. Well, she's shit, so she's gone.
That's non-existent.
Yeah, so exactly. She was meant to be the one that was meant to be doing all the talking. We got one interview with Daniel Levy in his statement each year and maybe a fan forum after every 2 years. Vinay is one that I'm very cautious of at the moment because I think he's going to get dragged into this party scandal. And I think Spurs are going to be slandered by this. And I think that all this cover-up will come to mind because remember, Vinay only left Arsenal in the last 6 months and this has been going on since 2022. So it was under his watch and the Kroenke's watch and Lego head Arteta.
He left Arsenal deliberately because of that?
No, there was already talks of him having a strained relationship with Stan Kroenke anyway over it. He didn't get on with the board in the end and the owners, but I think there is some implication that will come to light in coming months. But no, I mean, Spurs are doing a massive reshuffle again. The youth staff are getting changed over. The technical staff are getting changed over. The medical staff have been fucked off. They're probably working for the NHS right now. Let's put it that way because they ain't at the club.
Levy shuffles more than a pack of cards, but he always seems to pull out jokers.
Oh, he's literally playing a 4D game of chess. Let's put it that way. Every single season. Well, yeah, because no one else wants to play with him because he's a bastard. It's so difficult, and yeah, I've got faith in the appointment of Frank. I think some of the people that he's brought in with him are very good. They've got the new goalkeeping coach in yesterday. They've appointed Matt Wells and Stuart Lewis up to first-team coaches in different capacities, responsible for youth transfers. It's good, but I still think there's a lot of work to be done at the top because fucking Rebecca Capelhorn's still there and Matthew Colcott's still there. Colcott is a financial conductor and coordinator for the club now. And I think the Lewis Trust have lost faith in Levy, in how he manages the club's money on the footballing side. So this guy's coming as an independent regulator to control it. He works in conjunction with Rothschild's bank, who have been doing all the investment side. So now it's a difficult, interesting time, and one thing that will prove it is what we hear about this Kudus deal. How much is actually agreed as upfront add-on or like upfront payment? How much is in instalments, and how much is achievable add-ons? Because from what everyone's reporting, it's saying that it's going to be like 62 million we've offered. 10 million of them were unachievable add-ons, winning the Premier League, winning the Champions League. He's going to be a Ballon d'Or winner. I mean, come on, fuck off. Seriously, be real. Don't. This is what our club does when it comes to transfer dealings. So no, I'm on the fence, but I'm still very much purely frustrated with the club. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it sounds like when United signed Anthony Martial, I'm sure there was a Ballon d'Or winners clause in that, and he's now at AEK Athens, I think. So
no, he's at Monaco now. He's gone to Monaco now. Yeah, Monaco's front line is like the failed wonder kids of FM. They've got Pogba, they've got Martial. Yeah, he's gone back there.
Just full circle.
Pretty much. Yeah, literally, they've got Pogba, they've got Martial, they've got Takaminto, and someone else as well over there. They're like failed football manager wonder kids.
Like what they could have bought in their prime when they had all that money.
Yeah.
Amazing. Right. Anyway, guys. Oh my God, I got far too close to the camera then. Right. That wraps us up for today's show. We will be on next week to discuss. I will not be on next week, though, as I'm on holiday. But only time will tell who's going to be the host next week. So I'll leave it up to you boys to decide. But Callum, thanks again for jumping on. How can everybody find you?
No, been another good one. Been able to vent some aggression, which was good as well, mate. So you can find me at CallumStubbs97 on X and wherever else anyone finds me. Probably somewhere else in life. I don't know yet.
Amazing. And Harry, how can everyone find you?
No, thanks for having me on again. Really enjoyable one. So thank you, Luke, and thank you, Callum. Nice to share the stage with you, I suppose. That's all you're going to get from me. But no, it's good to come on. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone that's commented, quite a few as well in the chat. Make sure to like and subscribe. If people are interested in finding me, don't worry if you don't. You can follow me at HarryScarf22 across all socials. Also have my own channel, Harry Scarf, which has the Scarfy Spurs podcast included. And I believe my channel, I've just been notified we've been on here, won an award for the Spurs Kings TV channel. They've done awards nominating content creators and channels. So apparently we won an award. So thank you to everyone who voted for that.
Amazing. Great to hear. And thanks again, Harry, for coming on. He may be the host next week, as he just put his hand up to
Fire me.
Yeah, look, thanks again to everyone for tuning in, for watching, listening, and everything else. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we will see you next week, 7 p.m, for another Part podcast. But until then, a massive come on, you Spurs.